apa mengizinkan kita terus kepada tindakan tindakan dan penambahbaikan yang kita buat. Ini yang paling penting kita telah kaji perkara ini supaya kita tidak menjadi seperti Tom and Jerry kita terus kepada tindakan dan penambahbaikan yang kita buat. Ini yang paling penting kita telah kaji perkara ini supaya kita tidak menjadi seperti Tom and Jerry Jadi yang pertama kita buat penubuhan unit cegah jenayah alam sekitar ni, UCJAS. Kacau. Okey, UCJAS ni adalah di bawah Kementerian Kasar, Kementerian Sumber Air dan Alam Sekitar dan Sumber Air yang melibatkan tindakan bersepadu antara pihak SPAN, JAS, PDRM dan juga JBK. JBK Jabatan Biokeselamatan. Perubahan ini dan kita telah membuat pengambilan staf tambahan lebih dari sekali ganda untuk pihak SPAN sendiri. Dan yang keduanya kita memperketatkan pengeluaran permit. Permit ini penting untuk disludging. Permit untuk disludging tanker dikeluarkan oleh pihak SPAD. Kita mengenakan syarat-syarat yang ketat dan kita akan revoke ataupun cancel permit yang tidak mematuhi syarat. Antara syarat yang kita kenakan adalah menghendaki permit kepada setiap lori, tangki, bukan kepada syarikat. Dan kita juga mensyaratkan pemasangan GPS dan mengenakan sistem doket. Maknanya hanya dibayar setelah menghantar ke tempat yang dihaskan untuk dibuang. Jadi ini untuk mengelakkan pembuangan secara haram dan kita juga memperkenalkan color coding untuk lori tersebut. Dan itulah antara yang kita wujudkan dan kemudian kita mempertingkatkan SOP yang bersama antara agensi-agensi yang terlibat di peringkat kerajaan negeri dan juga kerajaan persekutuan. Yang tadi kerajaan persekutuan di bawah UCJAS kita memperkuatkan dan di peringkat kerajaan negeri seperti luas dan juga pihak operator sendiri yang kita arahkan supaya memiliki tim khas, dedicated team untuk mengawal sumber air dari seluruh catchment sehingga kepada intake point lah. Dan kita menetapkan SOP dalam tempoh 2 jam mesti sampai kepada tempat yang disyaki. Itu untuk SOP pihak SPAN lah. Dan kita seperti biasa kita menggunakan teknologi baru, teknologi terkini dan juga WhatsApp untuk komunikasi yang antara jabatan-jabatan. Okey. Dan di samping itu kita menunjukkan denai sungai dan kita juga membuat pindaan akta perundangan ini supaya lebih ditakuti atau kita cuba sedang merangka untuk meningkatkan penalti dari 100,000 kepada 15 juta ataupun 20 juta lah, kepada pesalah. Dan dalam masa yang sama kita cuba memperkukuhkan awareness atau public awareness kepada semua public apa tindakan melalui Facebook dan sebagainya secara daily atau sebarang maklumat. Dan kita juga memohon kepada pihak public supaya sama-sama kita menjaga persekitaran. Sebagai perakhirannya saya memohonlah kepada semua pihak publik, pihak semua sekali antara kita supaya lebih peka dan membuat laporan sekiranya ada pembuangan di mana-mana, membuat pelaporan kepada SPAN, kepada Indah Water, kepada Syarikat Air Selangor dan mana-mana agensi yang terlibat. Kita ada e-aduan yang boleh dilaporkan, boleh dikemukakan gambar, boleh dikemukakan video dan sebagainya. Dan itu sangat membantu dalam menyelesaikan isu ni lah. Dan saya tidak memberi jaminan tetapi sehingga November last year sehingga kini belum ada kejadian baru yang berlaku melibatkan pencemaran dan saya harap dia akan berterusan dengan
Mohammed, I
tindakan
really
yang
have
diambil.
to interrupt you. It's not a water cut, but it's please, we're really running out of time because we have got 4 other speakers. If you don't mind, please.
Okay.
Apologies.
And thank you very much dengan itu. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mohammed. I know it's hard to say all you want to say within a few minutes. But it's good that we started with the first speaker as a regulator to tell us what the 4 corners are. And you mentioned about the laws. I think in my last count, there are about 11 laws that do apply to water. And it's all a question of not just having the laws, but of course, enforcement of the laws. So while we talk about right to clean water as a human right, of course, let us not forget the other end of the spectrum is that water supply is the business. So we have to balance all the issues that come with it. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Dr. Marimutu Nadesan. I think he is very familiar to all of us. He's a strong consumer activist with the ERA Consumer Malaysia and with FOMCA for a long time. You still are with FOMCA. In fact, he's wearing one of his FOMCA jerseys. Many years with SPAN and very familiar with this problem. Can you please share with us what are your perspectives on this, on not just the regulatory part, but the problems that we as a rakyat face? Why is it we're having dirty water coming out of the tap, water cuts, and so on and so on?
Thank you very much, Swakam. I think first of all, I'd like to thank Swakam because I'm impressed with the set of commissioners in the last 6 years. Because statements, good statements, a lot of good activities. Because I've been following Swakam since its inception. The first 11 years, I used to do Swakam 1 year, Swakam 2 years, Swakam 3 years, conference. Last 10 years, I've given up. So, thank you. Okay, the good news is that our water clean? Yes. You can look at my paper. The parameter is good. That is the good news. We are safe to drink and it's very clean. The bad news is that only in Klang Valley, last year 2020, 29 times water cut. Water cut means it can be 1.5 day minimum. If it's 1.5 day, 45 days, we now had water in 2020. And we still paid our bills. That is due to simple. The law is not clear for punishment, especially for water operators. In UK, if there is a planned disruption, maximum 4 hours. You must resume back. If not, you have to pay. If it's a major burst, 48 hours. If not, if it's going to be a planned, planned piping, it had to be most 12 hours, the water must be back in. This is in Malaysia because it's due to the lack of law, especially to punish the water operators. Okay, that's one. The other thing is that if you look at our rivers, our rivers 80% water. We take water intake from 80% from the rivers. But our rivers, if you look, Tap 1 until Tap 5, most of our rivers are quite bad, 4 and 5. So you must understand, sumber air kita, we compromise that. And if you look, of course, water is a human rights. UN have declared it, and we all know that it's a human right activity. Then the other thing, do we have water, Clean Water Act? It's ding dong since 2007, since I was a commissioner then. Until 2017, I left after 10 years. It's a ding dong. Till today, we don't have an act on clean water, safe, clean water act. It's still a bit MOH. So these are the couple of things. If you look, our common issue of water disruption is pipe burst. Because in 1997, when Selangor had a crisis, 97-98, that time we are talking about 3 billion only to change pipes in Selangor. Okay, that Selangor Mulia Persekutuan. That was 1997. If you talk about today, 2021, I don't know how many billion. Because we don't change pipes at all. colonial pipes are still running around, most probably, and we have a serious problem with that. That's why our disruption is always there. And then water education in Malaysia is quite bad. Simple reason, the tariff is still at a reasonable level where people are abusing it. We use at one time 200 over liter of water per day, or 210, 215, which some of the country, they can't even use 45 liter. And if you look at Singapore, if you want to be a developed nation, you need to have non-revenue water 20%. How to be developed nation if our non-revenue water has been 38%, 37, some state it would have been the highest at 57, and check with Dato' Kadir. So we have a serious problem of water problem. Margin is low. Google and check Singapore margin. Google and check what is the new water in Singapore, why the water education in Singapore is continuously going on, because they know it's very important for them. And I think so it's a high time. I thought only in India we had water over rivers and intakes, but we have seen it now, Kedah and Penang. We have Kedah, Penang and Perak are interlinked. So with that, ask me any question, we'll answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maripto. You mentioned that's a lack of laws. Sorry. Oh, okay. Oh, I've just got a note here to remind speakers to please speak closer to the mic. All right. I was saying, yeah, you mentioned there's a lack of laws, but as I mentioned just now, I think there are about 11 laws. So let's hear from our next speaker, Professor Dr. Rashika, and she is a legal expert on water law and environmental federalism, Professor Deputy Dean with UKM. So can you please tell us, Doctor, whether we have the laws, are they sufficient, or is it the implementation of the laws, the enforcement, which are the problems, and also whether or not a death penalty is really a warranted penalty under the Water Services Act. We have our views on that, so how come it's very much against the death penalty, but that's we'll take it on another day. Can you please, Doctor?
Assalamualaikum, good morning. Thank you, Dato'. And I try to be as fast as possible. I was told by the secretary it would be 15 minutes, but now it's 8 minutes. So, okay. For the benefit of the audience, there are things that we need to look at when we talk about right to clean water, and at the international level, there are many generations of human rights already. And if you look into the first generation of human rights, when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was passed in 1946, and following that, the second generation of human rights talk about people has the right to civil and political rights, economic and social and cultural rights. So this allow people, to have the freedom of speech, freedom of movement, okay, freedom to education, etc. Actually, at the global level, we are now in the third generation of human rights. After the Rio Declaration, the Rio +10 and Rio +20, the Millennium Development Goals, people are now talking about protecting the environment because you enjoy your economic development, but you neglect the environment. Okay, hence we are now at the fourth generation of human rights, the extension of the environmental rights to also look into the rights of the other human beings as well as the animals, as well as all living creatures. If you go back to our federal constitution, we have Article 5 that talks about right to life, and then we have Article 6 until Article 13 to right to property. But that makes us wonder, which generation are we in now? Okay, and if you look into all this right, we are actually we are still at the first and second generation of human right. We haven't expanded our federal constitution provisions to also include and to also specify the right of other living creatures. And we heard just now about Tan Teck Seng case. There are discussion on what is life, and Gopal Sriram in that case explained the expression of life incorporates all those facets that are integral part of life, and it also include the right to live in a reasonable, healthy, and pollution-free environment. And our problem now is that our rivers are polluted, and that cause a lot of water disruption, and that has actually questioned us whether we have this right to clean water. And this right is already accepted at the General Assembly resolution and now incorporated in the SDG 6. Okay, but this definition on life, the liberation given by Gopal Sriram in that case was never broadened or nor commented in any other later cases. So we stopped there. But there's no life without water, and if the water keep on disrupted, that will affect the economic and social life, hence our livelihood. So we are still no near to clear right to clean water based on our federal constitution. But who should legislate on clean water? We have lots of laws already, and there are federal lists, state lists, and concurrent lists. There are so many laws, and in fact, each and every law, to some extent, there are provisions on pollution prevention, but are that enforceable? And we see these cases, we have pollution from all sorts of sectors, from the illegal factories, from the legal factories, from fishing, from poultry, from development, of course. But the one who give the license to these activities are the one who should prevent, okay? We are not looking at who should be responsible anymore. We should look into which agencies should prevent this pollution from occurring. And we don't want this to happen again. The Kim pollution, we hope we don't want to see this again. Okay, if we manage to prevent the pollution from occurring, and that brings us to a very important part of ensuring this is for the public to take part in the decision-making process, and for the public to understand what the issues, for the public to get all the information required for them to make good decision-making. And we do have environmental court division in place, but we also have problem of our judges either not trained enough in environmental cases, okay? They heard both the criminal and civil cases just like any other cases. And we do have a problem of establishing local standard in the court procedures, okay? But we do have the Practice Direction 7 of 2015, which still doesn't liberate enough the requirement of that local standard. So any public, you or me, we cannot just simply go to court and ask the court to order stop work, etc. But we do have the MTUC case, which has relied this local standard, and that allows anyone who are adversely affected to bring the matter up. So should we amend our federal constitution? I think I just skip this through. And in the Switzerland constitution, there are detailed provision on water, which we can refer to. And they emphasize more on how water need to be managed in a holistic manner. The Philippine Constitution, close to us, also emphasize on the right to health, on the right to protect the environment, and And we have cases like Oposa versus Veteran, which being a leading case throughout the world on how we need to protect the environment, water included, for the benefit of the future generation. Our close neighbor, Thailand, also have specified the right, okay, and how water need to be managed in a very systematic manner in the constitution. And I guess that's how we should move forward. And New Zealand, in fact, not only give the right, okay, to the human, but also to the river. So, you know, around the world, there have been expansion of how this need to be done. And we don't want, at the end of the day, water becomes a commodity, and that will, you know, make the marginalized to be suffer. And we have the recent case in Indonesia that has actually terminate the water privatization and give it back to public utilities to ensure water for all. And so we do have our judges who have emphasized this towards the end of the retirement, okay, and they emphasize on the judiciary's duty to actually uphold this right, okay, but we also need, you know, our lawyers' friend to bring this matter up to the court so the court can be more active in terms of interpreting it. And so as a conclusion, I would say that most Malaysians have access to water, no problem, but our problem is river pollution can cause water destruction and that affect our life. So the time has come, I think, for the federal constitution to be amended so that we include this right as a fundamental right, and this will provide local standard for all of us to actually claim this right against any polluters and also those agencies who fail to prevent this from happening. Thank you, Dato'.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rashida. You have given us your presentation on legal issues for implementing right to clean water in Malaysia. I have several questions which we'll raise later, but just to have a heads up on this, do you think there are sufficient laws, or are there too many laws and people really do not know which law to go under? We'll have your answer later.
Oh.
Just want to raise this. And the other, of course, is that when you talk about there are judges and they are not too familiar with the law on water and environment and so on. So we'll touch those issues later. Okay, for our next speaker, we have Dato' Abdul Qadir Mohammadin, Malaysian Vision and Mission towards Clean Water for All. Dato' Abdul Qadir is a engineer by profession, a civil engineer, and he's got many years, 36 years of experience in the water and sewerage industry, and he is now president of the Malaysian Water Association, MWA, and the former CEO of Inda Water Consortium, IWK. Can you please, Dato'?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Good morning, Yang Bahagia Tan Sri, Datuk, dear panels and Datuk moderator. 8 minutes is very short. I'll try to be very brief because what I'm going to present is a vision, and vision is all the facts that's been known to the public. Maybe you have not enough time to look at various sectors of what has been planned in the water sector. So just the contents. Before I move on, you should know what we have. Money for this data is only 2016, but I guess it's still valid. What is more important to note that, as what we said, we have a lot of raw water, 496 billion meter cube, and it's partly from the surface water. And I'd like to note here that we don't have a problem with raw water. What we have problem is about efficient management and a good system. So as what we also said by the KSU of CASA, don't ever talk about Malaysia having a stress. We don't have water stress. What we have stress in management and how we manage what has been given to us by God. So talk about the vision of 2020. This has been done because of all these issues. Again, we talk about conservation and also management. Now, 4 key objectives. to look at on this Vision 2020 related to water is about the people, about food and rural developments, environment, and economic development. And this is the areas of concern that have been focused on the Vision 2020. And with that, what has happened till today and still ongoing, the water industry restructuring, look at governance, but water has been divided into two, the raw water being still under the state government, and the treated water is federal, and also sewerage is federal, and sewerage is still under concession. I think they have under 12 years or more to look at the concession of IWK, who is supposed to look into the whole nation, but it's not being given whole, but it's still operating. So like the state, talk about raw water specifically, who is in charge of state water is the water authority, example like Luas and Bakash. I'd like to mention Luas is a good model. Hope that can be emulated or what they call being done for the rest of the country. Looks the next, what happened in the water industry researching, the regulator was born. And the enforcement was since January 2008. And once we have the regulator, it regulates the service license and the facility license. Facility license is owned by Pengurusan Aset Air, short by named by PAAP. It's 100% owned by the government. And water operator, of course, there are a few types of water operator. And I'm not going to tell more about water operator because there are various version of water operator operating their assets. And as of today, all have migrated except for Terengganu. And this is the result of asset-light model, whereby the water operator focus on operation and funding is made available through the lowest interest, longest installation period, and the repayment is through ring fencing and by securitizing their water income. But as a result, as you can see, this is based on 2018. We're still waiting for SPAN to release the next audited figure. But financially, I would say still has not improved. 5 states still experiencing financial loss. And this can be one of the indicator of performance. It's not all through their faults, but you can discuss about that later. So if you look at the results, again, 5 failures related to financial generally, all not good. Only 3 goods and 2 satisfactory. Still, it's not up to the marking yet. If you look at the moving forward on the 12th nation plan, it's about shared prosperity. So I would like to focus on the shared prosperity on the environmental. That is where the last point of it is water as a commodity. That's what we mentioned just now. I look forward for this to happen and a lot of areas, but this is what I can share for today in the short of time on the water as commodity. It is related to the strategies. I just talked about the objective, the rest is all in the paper. It's about water security and the keyword is sustainable. And it's about economic, how to transform the water sector from cost center to profit center. And this is the most ideal, I think. It's about time that we wake up from our sleep, that water is needed. It's the first that you use every morning, especially the toilet. And but the last that you think of to pay. So in terms of the strategy, this is the national agenda. I cannot say more than this, but this is the 20-year planning for the 4 nation plan, starting from this year, is the 12th nation plan, 13, 14, 15. But talking about accelerating the growth of transforming this water sector, eventually becoming the regional hub. And they have that strategies, how to empower the people, strengthening the governance is very important, governance, and enhance the capacity, data-driven, so that everyone have access to it. And again, talk about financial capacity, and of course, developing sustainable infrastructure. Remember what I say about good infrastructure, it's not about raw water, it's about how you manage. So this is the policy. Again, the word here is financial sustainability. It should be self-sustainable, looking at the key drivers of the people, again, information, infra, financial, and governance. Water stakeholders' expectation is about us. You must not forget about sewerage. When you talk about water, people always talk about water. You always drink, but you forgot that you also have to go to the toilet. I'm sure all of you 100% sure every morning you go to the toilet, and that is first place that you go, and the last place that you pay. You may not pay. Maybe somebody of you have not paid. I'm just reminding you, please pay. It's only 8 ringgit, only 26 cents a day. So it's not much, 8 ringgit a month. So if you look at water, there are 5 elements. It's just the key factors. It's about reliability of quantity, acceptable quality, that was being said by Dr. Marinity just now, drinkable. But I put a question, drinkable. As long as there are water filters installed by the consumers, I mean, the confidence level is still not there. So if you go to Europe, I hardly see any water filters. So unless we reach that level, and then the confidence limit is there. Sufficient pressure. No point of having good quality, but the water doesn't reach you. This is another part of it, of infrastructure. And efficient service, of course. Efficient service meaning that no excuses. The contract is to supply and must supply, rain or shine. And lastly, it's about right pricing. That's on water sector. Normally, the layman look at what? They look at, of course, the treated effluent quality, you cannot judge because it needs to be measured. What you need is to look at visual. Aesthetically, you need to see a good treatment plant. There's no foul odor. Some of the houses just next to the treatment plant, every morning, every rain season, they have that aromatic aroma. So some of it become immune, some of them may not be in that comfortable position. And of course, again, efficient service. I used to say efficient service, don't ever see any of the IWK people in your area. It means that your area is a problem area. So I'm sure they are not around all the time. And it's about right pricing. So about the weaknesses in realization, I'm going to spell all because the water researching talking about 3 elements, talking about holistic. We have to be holy before you start anything. So all start in the heart. So that's why about holistic, but you're still not holistic enough. And talk about the sustainable, still not realistic. And of course, the next one is transparent. The rest you can read for yourself. But I want to say one thing. We have a lot of laws, we have a lot of policies, we have a lot of governance. What we lack is enforcement. And we should not be ruling with fear or favor. So we should be move on. So this is my last slide. Dr. Moderator, before you highlight to me, time is up. It just points to ponder. Of course, this is a forum. This is a discussion. Just now it's been mentioned by Puan just now about relation to policy and act. This old policy and act we have to change. Even what we are experiencing now of SOP, the new norm, by wearing masks, by wearing gloves, by scanning, these are new norm. So it's about time to look at the policy and act to suit the current changes and committed enforcement with no fear or favor and sufficient funding, including private involvement in this. Effective education and awareness because public doesn't know much. Until today, surprisingly, some consumer that I met still thought IWK is supplying clean water. So you see, that part of awareness is not there. So it's not aggressive enough. It's not daily. It's once in a while. This must become daily. The right water pricing and of course, the tariff setting mechanism. Water is free, but to bring the water to the house is cost, especially when it's damage done to the river pollution. There must be proper control, and that's related to the enforcement, I would say, and aggressiveness in implementation strategy. Are we aggressive enough? It's just hot when there's issues. Once issues dies down, then we sleep. Same thing was happening when it's drought season, we talk about water. When rain season comes, we forgot about drought. And they talk about recycling and things like that. Last not least, very important, is political will and a good driver. I didn't write it there, maybe quite sensitive. Water should not be politicized. Water is for all, it's our rights. And it's about time that the political sector to implement and not to change. Because every time the weather change, they change the direction. They change the policy. Just because it was said by the previous people, then they don't want to follow. What is good is to be followed. And this is the water rights that belongs to the people. So with that, the top moderator, I thank you. And I hope I've been keeping up to the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dato, for that presentation. Gee, I'm really worried if somebody has this idea that IW Care supplies water that comes out of our taps. I hope that's not an indication of the quality of water in Malaysia. Thank you. Now, we do have our last speaker number 5, Mr. Emin Bon, right to clean drinking water and sanitation in ASEAN context, and Malaysia's progress on sustainable development, number 6. I think we all know Mr. Emin Bon. He is an activist, an advocate and solicitor, and he last held the position of in ASIA, there's ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. He was the chairman there, and he's very much into international human rights law and practice. Mr. Bon, please.
Thank you, Dato' Omar. Tan Sri Chairman, welcome. And I notice Ambassador Haq is here from Swedish Embassy. Dato' Ishamuddin, Dato' Lok and Gerald. Nice to see all of you again, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I have only 8 minutes. I just want to do 2 parts. One, quickly just to highlight, and I think this wasn't highlighted before, is that there are communities in Malaysia that still face water access problems. This is one kampong in Pahang, Jahut. They still use hand pump wells and they have to walk, especially the women and children, every day or every other day to collect water. The Jahut in Kampong Sungai Terbo as well, although there are water pipes, they have no money to pay for those meters and connections. The dams that they had to do DIY are polluted, water is polluted, and you can see from the quality of the water. And there were protests by the Kampong villagers because there was illegal logging and developers coming in to do our work. They have to do DIY again. Gerai Orang Asli, well, an NGO, and you can get this all on Facebook, had to raise funds, crowdsource to get these pipes done, and it was gotong royong to get water. The Rungus people in Kampong Rita and Kudat, Sabah, still do not have water directly, pipe water. Therefore, they have to get water from dry river beds. And this is one example of how she is doing it. It's dried up. Then they have to use the coconut covering to make sure that the water does not evaporate. They use this to drink water. Again, DIY, state has not provided, government has not provided. They have to have their own gravity feed pipes. The Rungus people, again, in Kampong Tinanggo, in Kudat, Sabah as well, also do not have water. They have to create their own dams. And this is one example of a do-it-yourself dam. This is the sum to make sure that there's still water pressure that goes. That's also the dam, and it's again Gotong Royong. The Batik, you know about the Kampong Kuala Ko issue. In 2019, they were suffering from measles. Until now, you can see the water there. It's still polluted. They cannot drink that water. It's still for bathing only and washing. And then there's the gravity feed. It's a picture of the gravity feed pipe of the women working and cleaning there. All from Gerai OA, nothing new, but I'm trying to say that in terms of human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation, they are rights that are separate but integrated rights, and they are guaranteed under Article 11.1 of the International Covenant of Economic, Social, Cultural Rights. The state responsibilities, as mentioned in the concept note, is to respect, protect, and fulfill. And at the regional level, at the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Malaysia has reported high rates of access to safe drinking water, 96.5%, and access to improved sanitation at 96%. The most recent report by DOSM, our Department of Statistics, in 2019, on Malaysia's progress towards meeting SDGs states the following: 95.7% of our population uses safely managed drinking water services. 99.7% of our households use safely managed sanitation services. These are based on the census that is done by DOSM. And this is interesting, 93% of our water bodies, such as rivers, lakes, and groundwaters, have good ambient water quality. Ambient water quality refers to natural and untreated water in the water bodies, and represents a combination of natural influences and the impact of anthropogenic activities. But what Malaysia does when we do such reporting is that when the water quality is reported as slightly polluted, for our SDG reporting, we have lumped them under good quality due to technical reasons. And therefore, the 93% of our water bodies falling under ambient good quality water is not entirely accurate, because that includes also water quality that is slightly polluted. Despite the commendable data, Malaysia has yet to ratify the International Covenant on Economic, Social, Cultural Rights. One would expect that if we are on the path towards fully realizing water and sanitation rights, we will not fear making our commitment real at the global human rights stage. It would be foolish for anyone to object to having access and water and sanitation for everyone. And as such, we should speak more of water and sanitation as a human right that every person is entitled to claim. It is not to be treated as a commodity. And my respected panelists spoke about water in terms of moving it in terms of profit to be bought and sold. But from a human rights perspective, we should not see that as something to be bought and sold. It is also not to be seen as a form of charity. To this end, I would personally, and I've said this before many times, that we need to amend our federal constitution. I know Tan Teck Sing, Lee Kuan Yew, and a host of other cases have talked about right to life, including right to a natural environment. But I think it is time, and I want to say this again, that we need to amend our federal constitution to include the right to an adequate standard of living that encompasses the rights to food, clothing, housing, medical care, social services, safe drinking water and sanitation, and a safe, clean, and healthy and sustainable environment. After all, Malaysia has signed the 2012 ASEAN Human Rights Declaration, which already provides for the same rights. One word on Malaysia's SDG 6 journey. We have the global SDG 6 indicators has 11 indicators. But for Malaysia, 6 indicators, which represents 54.5%, are not available and require development. This is in Dawson's report. They relate to the safe treatment of domestic and industrial wastewater, water use efficiency, water stress, degree of integrated water resources management, changes to water-related ecosystems and procedures for local community participation in water and sanitation management. Malaysia's picture is therefore far from complete. Even if we had these indicators and managed to meet SDG 6, this does not necessarily mean that the human right to water and sanitation is fully realized. This is where strategic public interest litigation fills the gap. It brings to the government's attention the challenges that communities, including the Orang Asli and Orang Asal, face in the rural areas. SDG metadata does not tell the stories, and these communities fall through the cracks. It is no mean feat for vulnerable communities to file suits against the government, yet unfortunately, we still see strong resistance from the state in the courts. Instead of litigating in defense, genuine steps should be taken by the government in consultation with the communities to resolve these issues at the heart of these matters. Today, water and sanitation are often taken for granted by those who are accustomed to a regular and uninterrupted supply of clean water. We seem to raise a hue and cry about the importance of protecting water sources only when our pipes are dry. Those who continue to struggle for access to water and sanitation daily understand the value of what we assume is a given to us. We must therefore push to make the right to water and sanitation an enforceable claim before the courts, if not for ourselves, then for the marginalized rural communities who surely deserve our support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emenbon, for that presentation. We now have the floor open for Q&A. We have, of course, participants here in this hall, plus the many participants online. Do we have a current number of people online? 100. And so we'll start with questions from members in the hall, and then we'll take the questions as they come in from those online. Any questions to anyone to start off, please? or maybe I can pose a question. And please, panelists, feel free to answer the questions and in whichever order you like to speak. On the question of the laws that are applicable, yeah, my question earlier, Prof, is that are there sufficient laws? Are there too many laws and people are not conversant with them and not knowing what really applies? And are the penalties sufficient or are they too severe? Please, what are your views on this?
Thank you, Dato'. With regard to that question, the laws are sufficient, I would say. We have problem when pollution occurs. People will just, go to JAS, complain to JAS. When JAS is only looking into pollution from point source pollution. So, and sometimes I heard JAS say it's only 20% of all the pollution that goes into the river. We don't actually see Department of Fisheries or Department of Veterinary Services enforcing the laws for the activities that they gave license to. And so do the local authorities who gave license to SMEs to operate. So the laws are there. Each and every activities that basically pollute the river, there are laws that govern them, but it's a matter of making people understand that there are agencies that actually regulating the activities, and it's not only JAS, it's not only LUAS in Selangor or the Badan Kawal Air. These activities must be also enforced, but we do have, problems when the certain departments, they have certain KPIs to, achieve, okay, for food security, etc., etc. But we do not see water in a holistic manner. So water, we require water for all. We require water to produce food. We require water for energy. So we don't see that next, and that's why we fail to actually manage water in a holistic manner. So the laws are sufficient, I would say. Even when Lembaga Urusaya Selangor increased the penalty in their recent amendment after Sungai Gong incident, the next day we have another pollution incident. So the polluters, they will continue to pollute, but it's the agency need to prevent them, because most of the laws, most of the enactments on these activities, they provide pollution control provisions. So it's for the agencies to, be more proactive in terms of monitoring these activities so that it will not cause, pollution like what we see today and disrupt our water services.
Further to that, we have very severe laws. In fact, under the Water Services Act, the maximum penalty there is a death penalty if pollution causes death to persons. Do you think, Prof, do you think that the courts are responding sufficiently to deal with such cases in terms of sentencing? Are the courts too soft, too harsh? Are the judges, and these are usually sessions court judges, are they on the same page with the man in the street on trying to be strict about enforcement, hoping that we won't get this kind of contamination? Do you think that is sufficient being done?
I would like to take the example of Tan Sri Richard Malanjun, our former Chief Justice, who brings some of his colleagues, the judges, and stay in the jungle for a few days. From there, they understand the issues better. When they go back, they increase the penalties to the maximum. So we as a normal person, we just know what we know. We don't, see the things in the broader picture. We are specialized in our sectors. We don't see the connections, and that is what is the problem that we have in our water sector. very sectoral. So we don't actually make decision which try to, look into the other department's needs. So same goes to the judges. They are specialized in their areas. And when it comes to environmental cases, okay, sometimes it's very technical. And, you need experts, okay, to understand the issues and, to make decision appropriately. So, I think for Tan Sri Richard Malanjo, he has done many activities that try to increase the environmental awareness among judges. So it has started, and I just hope it will just continue and grow.
Thank you. Please.
I'd like to add to the one being commented just now on the law. Yes, what been said, we have too many laws. Yes, we have the law. But my comment here is maybe, as what we said by Mr. Edmund, I already said in my presentation, we need to revisit. There may be some overlapping. Take one example, what been said by Cik Jalal. SPAN is not looking into the river. It's protecting the consumers. Who is in charge of river? So we have JPS and we have LUAS. So that need to be made known so that people know who is in charge of what. There must be a custodian of this. This one. Number two is, I think when they talk about law, you're catching the thief. But before the thief enter the house, you must have a proper fencing and how they can get away with access to the house. So what I'm trying to say here, let's look at where is the source. So how can this illegal factory be in existence? If they are legal, fine. First scenario, if legal, then there must be a proper monitoring to see what they produce and where they throw or where they dispose. They'll be solid and liquid. So that's number one. Number two, if it's illegal, how can they pass? And it's a small house. It's not just a small dot. It's just as bigger than elephant. How can somebody miss? And it sit next to the river. Or I can give a reason that the river changed its course and it was away, but because the river changed, it was now beside the river. So if it's illegal, a question being asked, how can they get all the utility services such as energy and also water? So what I'm trying to say here, let's go to the source. The law is there. Why must you catch after the damage is done? So it's about preventing. So preventing must start from the ground zero. Ground zero, that means from where it comes, must pass through the gates. It's just for illegal. When people illegal enter to our country, they call it what? Jalan Tikus, something like that. So where is the Jalan Tikus for this of approval for the law that they can just pass through? So maybe we have to revisit on the SOP. That's what being happen now. Everyone have this SOP of wearing the mask and all these things. So let's look at the SOP again of how this thing being passed. Because when I understand on the planning, there is what we call development order. When we go for development order, there are a lot of authorities involved. And everyone know of the existence. So that's my take on that.
Thank you very much. I think the battery is on flat. Thank you. Thank you very much for that observation. I agree with you fully. It's not just a question of regulators doing their work. It's not just a question of the providers, the treatment plant operators and so on. I think a lot of it depends on society and members of the public as well. We all have a role to play. We ourselves are stakeholders in this. Any questions, please, on the floor? Yes, please. Can you please state your name and the organization you represent? Can you please speak closer to the mic? I think people online Can't hear you so well.
Okay.
Can please somebody change the
Okay, thank
battery
you.
in this one? This one is
Thank you,
completely flat.
Thomas and panelists, my name is Muhammad Yusof. I'm from UC Putra, Malaysia. Relevant to what been said by Datuk Kadir and Dr. Shika, we have 11 laws. I think educate enforcement because we have multiple partners on the field now, complemented by recently drones, for example. But we are lacking in terms of the technology. If you compare what happened during the last decades of oil spill, we managed to use a method called environmental forensic to pinpoint to shipping lanes, to shipping activities in our Strait of Malacca that are causing oil spill and that reach our shore in Malacca, for example. But then that kind of technology has not been copied to the freshwater environment. And then that kind of incident in oil spill, for example, in Strait of Malacca, has led to another fund created by the government, sponsored by the petroleum agencies for petroleum industries. And then that fund could be used in case of pollution prevention, cleanup, etc. So I believe that we are not moving forward in terms of technology. Though we have drones, but then still in the recent case in Sungai Gong, I believe, recently, we need a manpower to pinpoint the direction of the pollution sources, which is very, very sad. While we are talking, our neighbors are talking about blockchain and, for example, the big data technology. So those are the missing point in our water sectors here in terms of pollution. That will lead to another issue because when we talk about water quality, we also talk about safe drinking water. But then how do we define a safe drinking water? Because that will be reflected in your parameters. And our parameters are based on EPA, which are outdated already. Now we are facing the threat of emerging pollutants such as endocrine disrupting chemicals. And we are using that kind of, for example, our supplement that we use on daily basis are being drained into our rivers, which will end up in our treatment plant as well. But these are not being catered by our treatment plant. So I believe that we are facing a serious threat in terms of defining what is meant by safe drinking water. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution. Can I ask any of the panelists like to take on this issue of technology, whether our technologies can be improved to have better quality of water and what really amounts to safe drinking water? Please, Cik Mohamad.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ma. Actually, we're looking for the technology also right now for the river basin and catchment area. Right now, the CASA, the ministry also agreed to put some funding to put up RMS, we call that the river monitoring station at the location will pollute in the like Sungai Gong and all the Sungai Selangor. But we're also looking for some technologies for order to kesan order from the river, right? But until now, it's still under some universities do the study on that. Then the CASA try to look into that, and then we try to put on the river for the piloting project first in near future, I think, to know what type of using the brain technologies or some of the AI technologies, artificial intelligence technologies. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mohamad. Apart from the problem of contamination, when people deliberately dump into the water sources and therefore pollute the water sources, but as far as the providers are concerned, the technology adopted is not really so high-tech, isn't it? To get water coming to our pipes, you have chlorination. I'm not sure whether we have fluoride added to our water, but I'm not quite sure what technology that we are talking about. Is it in the terms of treatment of the water and the water plant itself, or technology in trying to catch all these contaminators?
Yeah, I think both technologies, one of the treatment for treatment at the water treatment plant itself, but you know that the technology is quite very high cost. Cost also one of the important factors for the water supply in Malaysia. You know the what we call now the water very cheap, still cheap.
Can I add
that's
in,
the-
Datuk Omar?
And then from the river itself, from the water source also, we need that technology also. But right now, I think for most important thing, the enforcement team 24/7, and also the drone technology to surveillance all the entire river system, especially for Klang Valley, only 2 river important. What I said is Langat River Basin and also Sungai Selangor River Basin. Sungai Selangor for 60%. For the water supply system, the other one Langat around 35%, and the other 5% from the different resources. Okay.
So, sorry, yeah. Actually, of course, I agree with Cik Yusuf just now. We are in need of technology because the country, I always believe that we cannot progress if we don't have technology and keep abreast. But technology comes with cost. I take one example in sewerage. They put a vacuum system. That's high cost technology. And this is a real case in Klang. I'm not going to say where. You give a very high-tech technology, but the people is not ready. So sometimes the mentality, we have first class facility with third class mentality. You want a first class seat, but you pay economic fare. So the consumer has also have to play. That's the problem. So in terms of on the authority side, I think we have to break the silo. You talk about monitoring station, you have various agencies who have their monitoring station. This thing need to be integrated. I will call it integrated environment monitoring system. We have one station and with the probe and measure all. So that will cut costs, and also, you see, the pollution happen, the trend is when we are fast asleep. They do it at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or when there's heavy rain. We don't go out. This is where it happens. But if you have a proper probe, it's online and 24/7, it's a real time, then you can solve the problem. But it come with cost. So there must be some budget for the first cut of this infra. I take example Singapore. You talk about NRW, they were high, but they changed all the pipe, huge amount sent in billions. Now they kept their NRW to 4 to 6%. The same thing happening to Tokyo. Now it's zero. So it's cannot be like a hide and seek kind of a game. We need to put a proper perspective. And also you got to study these polluters. Why they pollute? Is it because they have no choice? Or is it because of greed to get more profit? I take one example. This is real case of water operator. The water residue is a schedule waste. Imagine from Penang or from Kelantan to throw their water residue to the one and only quality alam in Negeri Sembilan on a daily basis. The water operator will go bankrupt. So meaning that if you have a facility here, there's no parking space, but you have a car, and since there's no parking space, you park you're being summoned. So it's now I'm talking about, have you provided the right facility to give convenience to this industry? So just a question that I just like to pose.
Yes,
Hello. I think so. From experience, it's fun. I visited a couple of operators. The problem is that we don't have maintenance culture. One particular operator in one state, they don't even have proper engineers, limited engineers. And the non-revenue water have gone up to even 57%. That means once you treated water, your pipe pecah sana, sampai only 30-something%. So the maintenance culture is very weak because the water industry need a real serious relook because of two things. Because many water players are not sustainable because state are handling it and we are finding it very difficult. if it's going to be a long run. Second thing, none of the water operators in our country are spending enough money on R&D. They are just looking at only profit, very less. They are not going into new technology at all. Like every year, I think so. Those who are in water players, you all know that in Singapore every year we'll have the Water Week, the Asia Water Week in Singapore every year with the latest technology. They will bring in all the best company, best practices in the world there. Singapore is so small, but they are leading in water issues today because they're willing to spend that kind of money. They change their pipes every 3 to 4 years, but we 40 years, 60 years, kita to pipe because we are used to tampal menampal. We like pipe muncul tampal until last. So it's a maintenance culture. If you don't have a maintenance culture, you just forget about everything.
Thank you very much, Dato' Marimoto. Yes, talking about pipe bocor, I think in Malaysia it's not just literally water leakage in the pipes. There are other types of leakages as well. But what you say is, I think, is a very Malaysian thing. We always have good start, poor maintenance, poor finish. Yeah, we start with grand projects, a lot of ideas, but the maintenance culture is not there. Sorry, that's a very serious indictment. Perhaps I want to wake you people in the hall up a bit so that you can ask some interesting questions. Can I have some really provocative questions from all of you here? Yes, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Safari bin Mat Desa. I'm from Nahrim, National Water Research Institute of Malaysia under the Ministry of Environment and Water, CASA. Just a little bit extension from what Engineer Jalal is saying just now. In terms of technology, at this moment, mostly Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, as well as CASA, we have a good collaboration and synergy to look into the early detection of pollution for river. All right, it is in the pipeline. Yeah, for your knowledge today. We are looking into just now. Engineer Jaya is saying on order. It is in ton, threshold order number. Yeah, the research is ongoing. That is number one in terms of technology for early detection. Perhaps with this early detection can minimize all the cases whereby the intake is going to have a what we call the pipe sucking into the treatment to control the to have a early detection on the quality. That is number one. And then perhaps on what CASA or Ministry of Environment and Water is doing now at the utmost important now. Did every one of you know about DSK? May I know, did every one of you know about DSK? DSK is the Nine Sungai Kebangsaan. You know, this at the top priority in CASA now, whereby the Minister, Datuk Sri Tuan Ibrahim, the Secretary General, Datuk Sri Engineer Zaini Ujang is leading toward this. Yeah, it's like Dato' Kadi is saying just now on number 4, which is on the awareness and education. This is to attract people who live nearby the river, not to pollute the river, and to look after the river buffer, to have a deny, which is a trail for people to have an activity as a eye and ears to government. Yeah, at that particular of time, they can see whether the quality is there or not. If it are there any pollution, yeah, and then to bring people to interact with river, at the same time to uptake the river to a better quality. That is the function, or the initiative that CASA is doing now. So it's like yesterday we are at the Kampung Dato' Abu Bakar Baginda to clean the river. There is you can see a cloth, shoes, plastic or not. That is dumped by the people nearby the community at the riverside. Yeah, there is a very most important thing that community has to look into, and I would say that because we are living in the world whereby will be inherited by the next generation. The education system on syllabus of for the environment and water has to be inculcated in the syllabus for the youngsters. That is my comment, perhaps. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that comment. Do we have any questions coming online? None. You sure? Yes, please, Mr. Gerald.
Good morning. Morning. Thank you for the presentation. Just to highlight that I know the presentation was very clear and sharp about the water contamination in the recent past. But I'm also remembering there's another part of Malaysians' memory 2 years, 3 years ago when we had a lot of water crisis, not enough water. And I don't think the speaker spoke about that as a right to water framework. I thought your presentation said we have enough water to supply us, but I remember many times dams were dry, super dry. What were the reasons? Was it overlogging? Was it bad development for programming? I think that's something that I want speakers to address too. It's just not the contamination. Second part is maybe speakers can also give us a real insight. I think the gentleman earlier, he also gave some work they have done. Is like, why is the enforcement not working? Is it under-resourced? Is it because of corruption? It doesn't take much of serious investigation to go to a lot of the areas in Kuala Lumpur and see factories linked to the drains and I mean black color. So there must be a reason why this has been going on. We only get to crisis mode when we catch, when the smell, when there is a black color or dirty color. If not, I think it's still going on. So what is the culture prevalent, or is it a failure? I don't know, whose role is it? Is it local government? Is it state government? Is it federal? We have so many regulators here. We have ministries here. So, or is it, as you said just now, we ourselves are throwing things into the river? What's the percentage of crisis at these various levels of actors in contributing to this clean water in Malaysia? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gerald. That's a question for all our panelists here. Apart from water contamination, what about water shortage? Is it because of the climate itself, climate change, or is it because the water, or due to overlogging, instead of water seeping into the ground, you have quick runoff of water, and therefore that gets muddy and polluted, and then it ends up as being a shortage of water. So what really is the cause of this?
Yeah, I think so. Gerald, thanks for the question. You see, Gerald, I know you are from Taipei. Okay. Okay. Once upon a time, it was raining in Taipei. But in 2017, all our dams are dry up. Go back to Taipei again. See where the trees have gone. Hills have been cut down. And even span, sorry to say that, we are not addressing the issue of climate change. We use the word climate change for some, they thought for stylish, but we don't know what is the activity for climate change. And this has been going on in most of the state, and we're having serious problem of rain. Taiping is no more the wettest town. Now it could be, it's not no more wettest town for the last 10 years, Gerald. Okay, it's gone to, if you even see our Bukit Merah Dam, I was walking in Bukit Merah Dam in 2017, dry up, complete. Because if you look, the destruction of forests have been terrible. And then the other thing also we had to observe about rivers. We are not keeping our rivers clean, not because we don't like to keep our rivers clean. JPS is not digging it properly. We are not clearing it, the slides which is down there. That then the other, Whether you like, we look at Sungai Seminyak, 21 to 24 kilometers. You see left and right. If you put a drone, you can see left and right. Factories. You ask, blaming game. You ask, they say BN. Then they say Pakatan carry on. Okay? So that activity will going on. A river must be a river. You must have at least, whatever field, it'll be 1 mile, 2 mile away from the river. But today our river, we have campaigns. I know people talk about campaigns like Sungaiku, Jantungku, Atiku, and suddenly we become Kuku. Because we say our river, we've been carrying with our river what? We dump in our river TV boxes, mattresses, fridge, everything, it's a dumping ground. So I always believe it's the education. We have to keep on with the education. But the problem is that our education of environmental education is very weak. I admit as a FOMCA president, we are weak. We are still weak, especially to love our nature. It's not easy today, young kids, to bring them to love the nature. But we need to keep on doing it, but we will do it. But I still believe that our country is failing to address the climate change issue seriously. That is why although we can have water, but we have to have a water integrated water management system. Must be one single agency. It cannot be multiple agency. In Selangor, when you ask during the crisis, pollution, Jabatan Air Selangor comes in, Department of Environment comes in, LUAS comes in, SPAN comes in, and one more department, I can't remember which department. They come in, state government comes in. So everyone come in, but they are not sitting down and talking how to address it. So it had to be serious political will. You cannot be keep on pointing. That's why sometimes, let it be in any issue, if there is no political will, it's a susah. I know a state government who need to borrow every year money to pay the salary staff of the water workers. Okay? And I think so in the last 2 months, 2 states who's been owing with federal billions of dollars, they've been write off. I think so you all know which are the 2 states. Okay? So we need to put more emphasis. We cannot.
Thank you, Doctor. Gee, I didn't realize that Taiping is not the wettest town in Malaysia anymore. Probably Kuala Lumpur is with all our flash floods. But you're absolutely right. I think I want to take up this point raised by Dato' Marimutu, and that is the various players in this industry. On the one hand, you have the state, and the other is the federal. And this goes out to our legal experts here. What your views are on this? Is there a clash of jurisdiction, so to speak? Or, I think raw water comes under state, and then treatment and all the concessionaires and all that comes under federal, if I'm not mistaken. So does this really help? Or is it better to have this across the board, just a federal jurisdiction over this? Doctor, please.
Can I add, Mr. Ma? Actually, yes, maybe before, but right now I think cooperation with agencies like federal governments and state government, especially in Selangor and throughout Malaysia, is very good. It's very good. And then we having a discussion maybe twice or 3 times a year. Those agencies. And that's why not happen again after November. And I hope this year no more cases pollution happen. But I can't give any warranty for that. Okay. For info, for the climate change, and actually SPAN regulate all the operators throughout the Semenanjung Malaysia and Labuan, right? Not for East Malaysia. Right now, for this year, actually, SPAN also set the guideline for all operator to follow. And then one of they have to follow is a 15% reserve margin minimum, 15%. But not all the operator can follow that. But right now, in terms of dams level, for all states is stable, like Selangor, Johor some part of Gembot. This is our rural area. This year, east of Johor got a problem right now. Only that area. The other place is still okay. I think Selangor is good, still good right now. 85% more level for every dam, and only two state right now is not good enough, like Kedah state and also the Kelantan state. The other state, I think the water supply for this year is good. Okay, and the other thing I want to comment on Safri. Yes, I agree for that. Actually, DSK, Denai Sungai, Denai Sungai Kebangsaan, DSK. This is one of the roadmaps for CASA, and then we targeted that by 2030. This is another 10,000 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then for 2025, 5,000 kilometers. Denai, we call that the Denai, something we can go around for the community and make sure nobody can throw the rubbish and the toxic into the river, because everybody is there, right? See the river, like the Sungai Kim Kim. Right now, the Denai Sungai also goes there when KSU and YB Menteri also going there lah to do the Denai Sungai with community there, and then hopefully it's good lah. It's good for the future, because this is river actually for the next generation, and then we have to protect the river for our next generation. That's right.
Thank you, Encik Mohammed. Dr. Rashika, what's your view on this issue of the state on one hand and federal on the other? Is this a case for federalism to apply?
Yes, Dato'. We know the Constitutional Amendment 2006, which created SPAN and all that, and there is a division between water resources and also water services. But when we look into this the water destruction cases, okay, we have problem when the rivers are polluted and the rivers belong to the state. Okay, the activities, the developments are all allowed by the state. Okay, so we need, if we go back to the federalism theory, we need a cooperative federalism to apply here. In terms of development, for instance, okay, I think JPS have gone through, preparing integrated river basin plan for many states already. Okay, but when we come to planning permission, like what Dato' Kadir said just now, does it really concern about, the river basin? Okay, Langat, for instance, it doesn't consist of Selangor, it also consists of Putrajaya, it also consists of Nilai in Negeri Sembilan. But does all these local authorities, consider the river basin needs or just their local needs? So there are so many things that we need to consider in terms of ensuring water sustainability. But at the same time, it's not the job of the government alone. There is a need for the industry, the academia, the society to understand what's happening. And I think for the right to water must be accompanied with right to information. The society must get the information needed for them to make good decisions. As I raised just now in my slide, the Rio Declaration Principle 10 requires the society to take part in decision-making process, the society must also be able to access to information that is needed for them. They must know what is going to happen in the backyard in 2 or 3 years' time. So whether our public really, go into this town hall session, looking into the local plans and things like that. And so these are things that we need to explain to the society that, you must take part, then, we can have a more holistic decision making.
Can I give it to answer to Mr. Gerald question just now? You asked 2 questions. Why are our dams dry and why enforcement not working? Right? So enforcement part, I reserve it to the authority. I think it's quite sensitive. But one short word I can say about the building bylaw, check back. The principle is only rainwater goes into the drain. The rest all go into the sewer system. And that's the law. What have we practiced? You go down to all the shop, you can see some people still washing behind and throwing all this thing into the longkang and it goes into the pond. And commonly, I used to IWK. When anything happens, it's all IWK. So it's just a brand. It's good brand. Any order is IWK. So let's look back. Only rainwater it goes into drain, and then you get the water security back. And the dams dry. One of the reason is because the water catchment has been encroached, and that again back to enforcement. I think you may have heard a lot of stories, but if you look physically, there's a lot of trees. But it goes up into the air, the center point is all being cut away. So this all will deplete. Because dam is designed based on surface runoff, and the forest was able to retain water. So if that is not done, that's what happened in Lingui Dam. It goes down to 40%. And Dr. Monitor also said correctly, it's about maintenance. How often that we deseal the dam? So if you don't deseal the dam, then the capacity become shallower. And the same thing goes to the river. Has we ever seen Klang River being desilted? None. We clean the rubbish, but it's not desilted. Inside there is gold. It's how you mine the gold. There are technologies, and back to the technologies, I would like to go back to the question. So technology is expensive. Maybe I would like to propose here, what is it to any consumer if they just part away, when you run off the figure to the nearest cent, the 2-3 cents goes into a coffer called R&D fund. And thereby all the consumer own that technology. And you have the right to demand, yes, you want this and that. Because technology is not about building something in Malay, they call it short scenery, Technology is about doing what is needed by the industry. When you find the technology, you prioritize. If the river is polluted, you want to clean the river, or you want to put technology that when you extract, there's no water destruction. Maybe you can look at that. Because there are technologies, ammonia stripping and others. Ammonia stripping is about something like antibiotic. It will kill, strip all. So go back to short in technology, I'd just like to propose maybe the industry chip in, just run off 1 or 2, 3 cents of your dollars, or when you pay the bill, goes into the fund, and the fund need to be properly monitored with governance, with high integrity, no leakages, and you get the right technology for the country.
Thank you very much, Dato. I think it's all a question of civic mindedness. Yeah, a lot of this depends on us as stakeholders, we as the individuals, as the rakyat, as the stakeholder. I think we all lack civic mindedness, and all this dumping into rivers and for that matter, I mentioned about mattresses. Have you seen mattresses being dumped all over the place? There's something about Malaysians. We love to dump mattresses at the road corner and into the rivers. But really, I think it's a question of, well, it's an issue of education, a question of creating awareness and so on, to try to change the mindset of civic mindedness. How often have you, driving your car, stopped behind a Mercedes at a traffic light, brand new Mercedes car, and then what happens? The guy opens up his door to throw his litter, tissue paper, cigarette butts, or whatever. Now, Malaysians are educated, quite well educated, but we all lack civic mindedness. And this is something I think which really goes to the core of it, because with civic mindedness, we can then, expectations are much higher on our part, as well as expecting higher expectations from the regulators. All right, so any other questions from members here this morning? Do we have online? Can I have the question? I do not know what the question is. Can you read the question? Yes, please.
So we have a couple of questions from the Zoom. We are also inviting participants to ask questions in Bahasa Malaysia if they're comfortable to ask, and we will do some translation of the question. So the first question is from a participant named Anon. The question is given in Malay. So selain penguatkuasaan yang mungkin agak lemah, adakah undang-undang sedia ada yang melindungi alam sekitar, especially yang melindungi sumber utama air, sungai, laut, mencukupi atau memadai untuk menghukum individu bisnes yang menyebabkan pencemaran air sekaligus mencabul hak manusia terhadap air yang bersih? So just a loose translation on the question, besides lack of enforcement and the existing laws, are they sufficient to protect the environment and water sources? And if the penalty to the individuals, corporates who cause water pollution, thus violating the right to clean water, is sufficient? That's the first question.
We'll look at an answer to that first.
All right.
One by one. That's a legal matter. I think Dr. Rashida, you have mentioned that you've given some comments on that. Can I ask Mr. Edmund Bond to give your comments?
Ya, thank you Datuk. Terima kasih kepada untuk soalan tersebut. Sebenarnya pandangan saya adalah bahawa isu ini perlu dilihat daripada sudut access to justice. Undang-undang kita memadai, tetapi undang-undang tidak memberi hak kepada masyarakat atau orang awam atau rakyat Malaysia sendiri untuk membawa kes kepada mahkamah. Hanya rakyat atau komuniti yang terjejas boleh membuat aduan pada SPAN, kepada Jabatan Pengairan dan sebagainya. Dan kita bergantung kepada pihak-pihak berkuasa tersebut untuk membuat tindakan. Kalau pihak-pihak berkuasa tidak mengambil tindakan, rakyat, orang awam tidak boleh buat apa-apa. Jadi cadangan saya bagi menguatkan lagi undang-undang yang saya kata sudah memadai adalah untuk memberi balik hak dan kuasa kepada rakyat sendiri. This is what I'm trying to say. The access to justice issue on water and sanitation and all of economic, social, cultural rights have not been placed with the people as front and center. These rights have always been given or outsourced to authorities, public authorities, to try and get them to implement it on our behalf. So to the questions and the discussions that we've had, there was a recent report by C4 on garbage dumping, plastics and dumping. And this issue also came up. One of the recommendations was that because there's so many overlapping jurisdictions over who has jurisdiction to enforce on factories by the rivers, this has caused the problems among the enforcement agencies. And of course, corruption is one issue. So I think to answer the question, I want to say that you cannot litigate. Look at the water cases. Water litigation in Malaysia in the courts are very rare. There are no case. In fact, the only case is the MTUC case, and that case was decided on the local standby issue on trying to get the classified document out. But there's no other water case. And when we looked at it, when people come to us, people say, oh, this factory is polluting this river. We cannot find a way to enforce a criminal law, or we cannot find a way to go directly to the courts to say, look, my right to water and sanitation is being disrupted. And the court should uphold the principles of availability, accessibility, and of good quality. So that is my perspective, and I take it from an access to justice perspective, which I would recommend Suhakam should start looking at in terms of economic, social, cultural rights from that perspective. Thank you, Dato'.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Any other question?
Yeah, there's another question from Sahabat Ala Malaysia. What are the efforts going to be taken by the federal government to address climate change, since planting trees could induce more rain, which eventually leads to more freshwater production? Why the government aren't emphasizing much on tree planting, which could present significant positive changes to the Malaysian environment ecology, also will hamper the effect of climate change. Since 95% of Malaysia's water sources are derived from river, why not the Malaysian government hasn't initiated a nationwide tree planting campaign?
Oh, thank you. Very interesting question. I think a quick answer, if I may, on this is that when I was driving in here this morning on the radio, I heard that we are going to have a massive tree planting program by the government, 1 million trees within the next couple of years. My only humble wish is that please, whoever is doing this tree planting, plant our local trees. Don't start importing trees that will die after a couple of days. But we have all the trees that we need from the tropical forest. These are the trees that we can be planting. But I only hope that it can be a success. You're absolutely right. We need trees because that will help in retaining what you call runoff, surface runoff water, and goes into the ground and so on. Any views, please? Speak, panelists. Any views? Tree planting.
Talking about trees, under the Town and Country Planning Act, there is a tree preservation order. I mean, for the local government to actually take care of our trees, existing trees, and I welcome this tree planting initiative. It will help us a lot in terms of climate change, reducing the climate change impact, especially on the flash flood that occurring in Kuala Lumpur, and I also like to also coming back to this right to information and society. Not many understand what they need to do in terms of reducing the impact. I mean, we have initiative by the government on low carbon initiative, but do we really know how to play our part? So those are the matters that the general public requires information and guidance on how to do it. Not only the society, sometimes our agencies are also doesn't really know how to achieve the sustainable development goals, how the decision need to be made in terms of achieving certain goals that the countries at the global level has give commitment to reduce this much of carbon emission, etc., etc.
Thank you.
Now, coming to the tree planting, I think so 20 years ago we talk about tree planting. 10 years ago, so we start campaign, and one particular NGO did it quite successfully. If I'm not mistaken, Rotary was doing it. Rotary was doing it successfully for some time, but it had to be continuously. It cannot be kadang-kadang tabli. Okay, right is a right. People, when we speak about human rights, you must have always rights. You cannot say sometimes I give you rights, sometimes I take back. So right is a right. So the tree planting, government must have a plan. Like example, you take Thailand. For Thailand, agriculture land is guaranteed under, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not a lawyer, in the condition for food security reason. Okay, look at Malaysia. We have more than, I think that we have more than 200 golf courses in the world. We are the largest. Okay. Coming back to you, Gerald, you're telling why our typing dry up. You see, if you got a 9-hole or 18-hole golf course, it needs something like 15,000 people's water, daily water for it to be sprayed, to keep it moving. That's why I don't play golf, because to save water. So, okay, that's one. But coming to this, it must be guaranteed in the constitution that certain percentage of land which is green lung you need to maintain. If we're not going to maintain the green lung, we are going to have serious problems, because they will keep on cutting and cutting and cutting. It must be guaranteed in the constitution, because now you see nothing is being guaranteed. So they just start cutting. Look at typing clear case. Everything is gone. It's a matter of time, the actually look gone.
Thank you. Thank you, Any other question? One more question.
Yes, another question. Actually, we have a couple of questions, but I think this will be the one we address at this point of time. It's from Dr. Puna from Bayu. Her question is, do you think we should have a special court for environmental issues similar to the green bench practiced overseas?
Oh, Dr. Poo, good morning to you. She's a keen friend, a good friend of Suhakam from Bayu. Question is whether we should have an environmental court, is it? We do have environmental court, and as I was saying just now, it's usually at the sessions court judges that sit as environmental judges. Whether or not there should be more, then that's a different issue. Okay, I think that was a short answer. No other questions, right? From online. Any other questions? We'll take a last question here. Yes, please.
Okay, good morning to all. My name is Bahari. I'm from Indawater Consortium Sdn Bhd. Okay, as we know that Indawater Consortium Sdn Bhd is we clean the unseen. So most of the sewage treatment plant we took over from the developer. Okay, some of the sewage treatment plant we took over from the developer. So the issue is we cannot detect all the chemical or the color which is goes to the river. So that one, if the illegal discharge comes to our our manhole and goes to our treatment plant, we cannot treat all the chemicals and the color. My question is, in future, is there any enhancement of the technology or study the treatment plant in future? Thank you.
Thank you. I suppose that's right up your alley. How would you attend to this kind of problem? What's the technology required?
Actually, in short, the question is about illegal discharge into the sewage system, because sewage system is only domestic. So now we have a lot of these clever, intelligent consumer who produce industrial. They don't go to the manhole now, they go into their own toilets. They just flush, and that's what happened. Sewage treatment plant in Malaysia is not hybrid, is purely on biological process, and we don't use any chemical, not like other overseas. So the technology is available. Again, it's back to affordability. People always ask for first-class facility. I always say first-class facility with third-class mentality. They want all the best, but they don't want to pay. So first thing to use in the morning, but the last to pay in all your bills. So in terms of technology, there are, again, back on cost. I like to say it again, best to have a proper system of R&D fund, specifically for the water sector, and all contributed by the consumer, only 1 or 2 or 3 cents, the most, 4 cents. They contribute into this energy, and that can be done because technology is not cheap. Technology is expensive, but you have to employ the right technology. There are things that you can do, because look at, I just take one example, talk about agriculture. To replace alum, there is a kind of tree that you produce, and then the seed can be used in the coagulation. Some countries have done that. We have not done. We are focusing on rubbers and palm oil. But in process, there are. But we are not embarked into that. So there must be a special unit, as what been said. Water operators, they don't focus on R&D because they can hardly pay their operating costs. I don't want to say which state, let alone the TMB cost. And now we talk about R&D, they don't have enough fund. So there must be a central fund contribution by this small bill, 1 or 2, 3 cents, which I'm sure if you go to your house, when you wash your washing machine, there'll be 20 cents, 10 cents floating around. So what is there, 1 or 2 cents from the accounting view? So that can be used for the future of R&D to help the government in focusing to get the right technology and be, of course, regulated by SPAN, because all these things need to be regulated and approved by SPAN. Let's look at this focus rather than, in short, I'm trying to say we are still working in silos.
Thank you.
That's my point on that.
I'd like to end this session with a question to Mr. Bond. on the issue of access to justice. As we have discussed, we're all fully aware that we have the laws, we have the enforcers with all the various enforcement agencies, state, federal, and of course, people go to the court for remedies and access to justice. I think in Malaysia, our record is pretty good in that you can really go to court. But when it comes to representative actions, actions by a specific sector of the public, are you quite happy with the situation where the courts are not so, what shall I say, not 100% available for strategic litigation? The issue of local standard keeps coming up. And sometimes, I've been gone are the days when the court would say, oh, you're a busybody. This is a broad section, what you call a problem of a broad section of the society. It doesn't involve you personally. You cannot come to court. Yeah, but I think those days are gone. Today, there's better access in that the courts are willing, and I think the cases show that there's better chances of strategic litigation. But having said that, are you happy with the state of affairs that people can bring group litigation, representative action to courts?
Yeah, thanks, Dato', for the question. I think the federal court recently sort of opened up a little bit more the gates of public litigation in terms of the Desa Kiara suit and also allowing people, more people who may not be directly adversely affected to come to court. So it's still common law, it's still the judges interpreting it, and it may not be enough because the rules of court still require under Order 53 that you must be adversely affected. NGOs still lose sometimes, still allowed sometimes if AGC does not object. So I think it's better that we amend the Order 53 and amend, I think, Order 15 on representative action to actually be clearer as to locus standi. And actually just adopt the common law position, because we never know what's going to happen in the next 10 years, who the judges are and how they're going to interpret that. The UM Lim Kit Siang position is still being taken up in courts by AGC. And I think that kind of amendment requires, I think, all the stakeholders to decide. And with the CJ, not the new CJ, but with the current CJ, there may be more opportunity to start looking at how the locus standi rule can be sort of relaxed, but also issues of the ouster clauses, right? So SOACAM has done reports and recommendations on ouster clauses. Perhaps that should also be looked at, because in a lot of the litigation against government, the ouster clauses are there, not just in civil and political rights, but also in economic, social, cultural rights. And finally, I want to say that the public interest litigation, and I want to say that SOACAM has done quite well in sending lawyers to file amicus briefs. I think that has also helped the courts be a bit more cognizant of what human rights obligations are and what human rights commitments mean. So I think that should also continue. It may take one day for SOACAM to even file a case on SOACAM's name. And that's how it's been done in some cases in other countries like Australia.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words on SOACAM. I think we're all trying our best. Quite a few commissioners here today. Our chairman is here. I think our plate is quite full, and the right to clean water as a human right is definitely up there in the front. Not only that, I think you will also be aware that the view that if you cannot afford, the poor person that cannot afford to pay his water bill and water is disconnected, that can amount to a breach of his human rights. Yeah, so this is the boundaries that we working within. And I think you're absolutely right. Getting Malaysia to be a signatory, a party to ESCR, I think that's very important. And having, I'm not sure about SOACAM itself being a litigant and filing a case in court, but we most certainly work with the bar, members of the bar, on watching briefs and on amicus curiae basis. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank our speakers. Thank you very much, Dato Marimutu, Dato Kadir, Encik Muhammad, Dr. Rashika, and Mr. Edmund Bond for your time this morning. I think it has been a fruitful discussion, and thank you for the questions that we have, both online and in person. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
I think there are a few more questions, but we will be taking the questions to the next session. We thank the moderator, panelists, and participants for all the inputs and questions, making the panel discussion a fruitful one. We will now take a moment to take a group photograph. I kindly request Swakam Chairperson Tan Sri and the other Swakam commissioners to be on stage. And the rest of the participants, could I kindly ask all of you all to proceed to the front section and facing towards the opposite direction of the hall. Yeah, commissioners to be on the stage, please. Yeah, the other participants, may I request you to come to the center of the hall? And I kindly ask you all to put on your mask and be cautious of the physical distancing. And for the participants in the Zoom, kindly turn on your cameras. It'll be nice to capture your photographs as well. Can we have Zoom participants to turn on your cameras? It'll be nice to also have your photos captured together. So just one photograph for the commissioners, just in the stage. Yeah. The speakers and the commissioners. Thank you, everyone. We will take a coffee break time now. Please enjoy the refreshment and continue the conversations offline. We hope to see you back by 12:10. Yeah. For the Zoom participants, you may also take a break to grab a cup of coffee, take a water, or take a time to stretch your legs. Yang Berbahagia Datuk Seri Muhammad Hishamuddin Yunus and Suakam commissioners to be on the stage to begin the next session. Please give them a round of applause.
Who else?
Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Osman Hashim, Chairman of Suhakam, Commissioners of Suhakam, distinguished audience, ladies and gentlemen, Salam Sejahtera and good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for coming to this forum. My name is Hishamuddin and I'm your moderator for this session, which is the open discussion. This session is to give you an opportunity to members of the audience to share your comments, views, and experiences so that we all can benefit from your comments, opinions, and experiences. But before I open the floor, may I say a few words? I observe and hear just now that the case of Minister of Energy, Water and Communication against the Malaysian Trade Union Congress was mentioned several times by members of the panel. This case is what shall I say, is dear to my heart, yeah, because at the Court of Appeal, I was one of the member of the panel, a panel of 3 judges, and in this case, I gave a dissenting judgment. This case later became a landmark case because on the issue of locus standi, because the federal court in this case make important judicial pronouncement on locus standi, which improve our law on the issue of locus standi. But I am not going to speak about the locus standi aspect of the case because that's totally different. I will touch on the human right aspect of the case. In this case, the minister was on the verge of allowing Shabas to increase the water rates for the residents of Selangor. Syabas, Selangor, so it only concerns Selangor, yeah? Not the other part of our country. Rates is important because water is not free. Water is a basic necessity, but it is not free. Treated water, I mean clean water, is not free. One has to pay for it, of course. The pay is quite affordable to everyone. Yeah? It is so fixed, very low, so that everyone can access to clean water. Now, in this case, the minister was on the verge of allowing Syabas to increase the water rates for the residents of Selangor. The residents were adversely affected by the minister's refusal to disclose two important documents that relate to rates. Number one, the water concession agreement between Syabas and the government, and the audit reports. Let me say a few words about the water concession agreement. Under this agreement, the government allows Syabas to trade and provide and sell water to the residents for a number of years. I don't know, I think about 30 or more years. Yes. But although the agreement relates to basic necessity, treated water, yet I don't know whether I should use the word surprisingly, yet it is shrouded in secrecy. No one can have a look at the agreement. There's a clause there. Yeah, there are only 3 people that can have access to the agreement: Syabas, State Government of Selangor, and the federal government. If one party wants to show their agreement to other third party, the other 2 parties must agree. Otherwise, disclosure to a third party is no. Is it morally right? Agreement that relates to a basic amenities to the people have to be so secretive? One, that is a question that I ask and needs to be answered. Yeah, but that's a side issue. So the residents were adversely affected by the minister's decision. They were unhappy for the refusal to disclose these 2 agreements. Why? Why they were unhappy? Why? This because in order to know whether Syabas was entitled to increase the rates, from such a cent per gallon to such a cent, the residents need to have a look at these 2 documents. They have to have a look at these 2 documents: the concession agreement and the audit report. Need to have a look at this agreement because the concession agreement provide a formula when Syabas can apply for the increased rate, when and how Syabas the rates could be increased, and how. There is a formula. So the formula is the condition. Syabas must satisfy that formula before the minister can say, yes, you may increase the rates. Yeah. So the minister refuses to disclose. Unfortunately, the minister refuses to disclose the content of the concession agreement and the audit report. MTUC and some residents of Selangor, they cooperate, band up together and brought a court action, and the matter came before the High Court first. The High Court ruled in their favor. The High Court ruled that MTUC and the residents have a right to have sight of the concession agreement, as well as right to have sight of the audit reports. Government and Syabas were unhappy. They appealed to the Court of Appeal, and so the matter came before my panel. I was the dissenting judge in that case. And there were 3 of us. In other words, I was not in the majority. I was in the minority. As a dissenting judge, I ruled that the minister must disclose the information and that the government cannot hide behind the Official Secret Act. And that clause, I think clause 45, that clause which says that only for the eyes of the 3 people, only for the 3 entities only, yeah? Sabas, state government, federal government. Orang lain, others cannot have a look at it. So I said, that is not right in law, because here we're dealing with a basic right. I so ruled because without such disclosure, how are the residents of Selangor to engage in a meaningful dialogue with the minister as to whether Syabas was entitled or not to raise the water rates? So that was the reason why I dissented. Well, unfortunately, the majority was not with me, and so was subsequently the federal court. Yeah, I feel sad. I feel sad because I have strong feeling that there must be a transparency on the part of government when it comes to basic necessity, and there must be public participation on important issues such as the intention to raise the rates of treated water. Right, that's number 1. The number 2, which I wish to say a few words before I'm open to the floor, I was just to say that in the year 2010, Malaysia voted in favor of the first United Nations General Assembly resolution recognizing human right to water and sanitation. The Assembly states, I quote, "The human right to safe drinking water entitles everyone without discrimination to have access to sufficient, safe, acceptable, physically accessible, and affordable water for personal and domestic use. And the human right to sanitation entitles everyone without discrimination to have physical and affordable access to sanitation in all spheres of life that is safe, hygienic, secure, socially and culturally acceptable, and that provides privacy and ensures dignity while reaffirming that both rights are components of the right to an adequate standard of living." Close quote. That is the UN General Assembly Resolution of 2010. 5 years later, in 2015, all member states of the United Nations, including Malaysia, adopted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, which ultimately aim to improve lives and prospects of everyone around the world. Goal number 6 of the SDG is to ensure clean water and sanitation for all. Today, in 2021, how far has we in Malaysia moved forward towards achieving this dream? What are the challenges? With a view to provoking discussion this afternoon, let me allude to Suhakam media statement of 6 September, where it is stated, quote, "Suhakam is concerned that the laws, namely the Water Services Industry Act 206 and the Environmental Quality Act 1974, have not been successfully enforced to protect public health and the environment. The recurring water pollution," I'll allude to this, recurring water pollution, shows that critical gaps in this law remain to be addressed. So the key word here is have not been successfully enforced to protect public health. In Malaysian context, often whenever there's a problem, we say, oh, the law, we don't have adequate laws to address this issue. and then we go to Parliament and have it amended and amended, amended. So we are inundated up to here with laws. But we have to pause and reflect. How much of our laws do we really enforce? Are we serious in enforcing our laws? I think that's a question that we have to ask ourselves, and I think you and I, we know the answer when it comes to enforcement. Yeah. And then the other important words in the statement is recurring water pollution. I can give examples of recent recurring water pollutions. In March 2019, Kim River pollution case in Johor, 2,775 people were hospitalized after having exposed to hazardous chemicals in the river. Number 2, Sungai Semenyih pollution of December 2019. Number 3, Sungai Meru pollution of April 2020. And lastly, number 4, Sungai Gong pollution of September 2020. With that, I end my short note. Thank you for listening. And now I open the forum to discussion. Thank you.
Hello. So there are some questions from online. So may I ask your permission to read the questions from online? All right. The first question reads, as we know, there are always water cut off at Selangor area. Is the water disruption due to water pollution or poor management of the authorities? Is there any solution or method to resolve this problem? The water disruption affects the right to clean water and sufficient water of consumers. That's the first question.
That is a pertinent question, yeah, to begin with. Yeah. Now, I call upon the appropriate authority to answer this question. Who shall volunteer? Always water cut off at Selangor. Yes, that affects my house as well, yeah. Yes. Yes, that question needs an answer. I'm not in a position to answer that question, yes. Is the water due to poor pollution or poor management of the authorities? Authorities, you have to defend yourself. Tak ada. Oh. By the way, the person asking the question dia dah identify ke? Siapa nama? Please pass the message, yeah. Whoever to ask question, whether from Zoom or on the floor, must introduce himself or herself, yeah. Okay, right, yeah. Thank you for volunteering. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dato' Sri. For me, both is, I agree for the both. Is one the poor management of the authorities or water pollution or poor management. This is both is true, right? But actually, it's happening the last water pollution in November last year, we come up with the stringent enforcement and SOP to handle this problem. So from that, we set up a committee to handle this. We strengthen all the enforcer from the federal side, as well as from the federal is as well as PAN, JAS, Jawatan Alam Sekitar, and also from CASA side itself. And then we create the UC JAS. We call that UC JAS, Unit Cegah Jenayah Alam Sekitar. And then with the and also we manage to cooperation with the PDRM also, Police Raja Malaysia. So there are things, I think we try to improve the poor management of the authorities in terms of federal government and state government, I think. But from that also, we set up the KPI, we set up a SDG or roadmap for future plan to manage the clean water for the consumer 24/7, I think, not any disruption anymore. But for your information also, Sri, actually, we have two types of disruption of water. One is a scheduled disruption and the other one unscheduled. We're talking here is a unscheduled water disruption. But on scheduled water disruption is still, we need to, still with experience for the people. Actually for this year also we manage, the Selangor also submit the program for maintenance program, the major exercise for Sungai Selangor, phase 1 and also the Semenyih water treatment plant on July and October. That one is SPAN need to approve that work before they can proceed to do that. The other hand, for the long-term solution, definitely the CASA also have the roadmaps for the future that like the we introduced the great water, great water. This one and also for the grid, we call great and grid water. Great water is for the water resource or raw water to be graded at the different grade. If let's say good grade, the state government, we try to convince the state government to sell more. Like now maybe 5 cents per cubic meter or 10 cents per cubic meter. We have different rates because the state government protect the water sources. The other one, the grid water is purely more on integrated system between state to state or catchment and catchment area. Like a Langat or Semenyih, we can supply until to Sungai Selangor area, and then Sungai Selangor can supply to Langat area.
I have to cut you short.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jamaluddin.
Yeah.
For the enlightenment to the audience. This is not just a question and answer session, because question and answer session were in the previous discussion. We have a panel of speakers. here is more of an opportunity for audience to give your views, okay? Your opinions, to share with us your experiences. If before I give the floor, Cik Jaludin, you mentioned about enforcement at the end. I'd like to ask you, when I was in the Attorney General's chambers in the drafting division, I drafted the regulations about pollution going to the rivers and taking samples, and see to what extent the river is being polluted. If it's polluted, who is the culprit? Now, I am interested to know, how is this provision of the law being enforced? Do you send people onto the field every day, go to this river, go to Sungai Langat, Sungai Gombak, blah, 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 and take samples, yeah? And the next question is, after the hula baloo about pollution in Sungai Semenyih, Sungai Gong, and Kim, you can see in the television, so and so being arrested, kan? Director, co-directors, families are all being hauled to the court, being arrested, right? But does the enforcement division only spring into action when benda macam ni, when things like this are, people are making noise, something wrong has happened. River is being polluted, water disruption, everybody tak dapat air. Does the department sprang into action only when such a thing happen, or there is a regular enforcement activities? People are being arrested, taken to court, without all these exposures. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Actually, yes, we have that regular enforcement unit. Now, I think 24/7 we go around. Actually, it's happening from the past experience, from Friday night or Saturday and Sunday. You can see all the what happening earlier is and in the raining time. That's what's happening. And yes, we take a sample for all the what happened the site. Yes, we do that. Not only SPAN, but also from JAS, DOE. JAS most important. But what we was discussed earlier, we need to revisit what we call acta sediada because like DOE Act, maybe they only enforce with the limited session or limited pollution happen with the industrial area more than certain volume contribute to the river. But for me, it's not. We're looking on that also. I think CASA will look into this matter because the other countries, wherever you pollute the river, you are salah, and then we need to take necessary action on that based on the standard quality. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Sri. I have a few things to share based on my observation. Number one, just now we are talking about regarding right to clean water. We realize that we have been mentioning about education. To be very frank, clean water, right to clean water, and regarding pencemaran and all that, is all integrated into the curriculum, the school curriculum, even from primary school to secondary schools. So all of us know we are exposed to it. Now our problem is with the adults. Our selfishness, they are very selfish. And not only that, as Datuk Ma just now have mentioned about civic-minded, I think it's very important for us to educate again, once again, the adults, especially those adults throwing rubbish, throwing things irresponsible way. That's one thing I realized. So I think we need to have aggressive awareness campaign. And also the role and responsibility of the SMEs. I say most of these rivers are being polluted by all these small industries, companies. They are irresponsible. So this is something that we need to address. I mean, based on our experience, you don't think Suhakam only having this clean water program today, but for the past few years, as Suhakam, we have a program called Suhakam Bersama Masyarakat. So we go down to the ground, we meet the people. So the other day, based on our experience, we were in Pahang and Perak. And when we go down to these places, especially to the kampongs, we realized that the major complaint from them are low water pressure. So this is the complaint, and so muddy water. So we'll be wondering, now we are considered as a developed, I should say that we are in the process of developed country. But until today, in certain rural areas, but not interior areas, still people are suffering without water, access to water, to clean water, and low pressure water, sometimes for even 1 week. And then even a month, once in a while, no, every month they say they don't no access to water. Sometimes even a week they don't have water. So these problems, why are still until today? Even we have this complaint even in 2017 until now. So last year, only last year we couldn't go down. Even last year we went down one of the day, one of the sessions we went down. Still the same problem. Okay. And another thing is that how safe is our drinking water? Because I remember 2 years ago, there was a forum regarding water. And one of the minister, I can't remember the name of the minister, he was showing us with a glass of water, drinking water. He said that even the pipe water, the direct pipe water, you can just drink. It is safe to drink Malaysia pipe water. So I need an answer from those who are expert in that. And the another thing is that also about Indah water. I do not know how, if because I saw just now there's one participant also from Water Indah. Indah water or Water Indah? Indah water. Indah water. Because there's one situation where whenever you need their service, they come to the house, then you need to pay. So when you pay, we ask for a receipt. The receipt is under whose name? I mean, this is something that I think you need to look at the transparency part. Even though the staff there are dealing with it, certain things like this will happen. Okay, and we are very concerned, and I think we need to be address this issue very seriously, because we cannot commercialize water. Water is the right to everybody. And I do not know whether there is a situation where the quality of water, as just now I think Engineer Jalaluddin has mentioned, their quality of water, different grade. So that means certain group of people, maybe certain group of people will be enjoying very high quality water. We have certain group of people are enjoying certain group or certain grade of water. Is this happening in the country? Wait, I have not finished yet. I just want to share with you whatever information I have.
That one for the raw water. This is
no, I'm not talking about raw water. I'm talking about water. Because I know there are different quality of water. Water from the mountain, so the water will go distribute to certain areas, certain places. Whereas water from the river will go to the common people. So is this happening or not? Okay, the last one, about the bottled water. The drinking water we are having here, this mineral water, as you said, drinking water. How safe is this drinking water? Is there any chemical in this water, or is purely drinking water? Only that I'd like to ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Datuk Lok, for your input. I shall now invite Commissioner Gerald to say a few words. Yeah.
Thank you, Tuan Jalaluddin and all participants. Memang saya belajar banyak tadi, pagi tadi, isu-isu yang berlaku. Mungkin hasil daripada apa yang dikemukakan oleh Tuan Jalaluddin dan juga Datuk Seri on your court case, saya ingat mungkin budaya rahsia ni adalah sebahagian daripada masalah kita. So budaya rahsia ni, adakah itu juga bermaksud kita ada budaya sembunyi? So this is something that kita kena ubah lah. I think the water industry kena beritahu kalau kita nak stop pencemaran air atau kekurangan air, budaya ni kena stop. Kalau tidak, orang boleh sembunyi di sebalik perundangan. Dia cakap, oh ini OSA. So kenapakah isu-isu air yang menjadi hak kepada semua rakyat Malaysia tu disembunyikan bagi saya. So I think cadangan mungkin court case dulu yang Datuk Seri cakap tu mungkin tak berjaya, tapi dari ground kita sendiri boleh minta supaya budaya itu dilenyapkan dalam sektor air. Ini bukan security, ini is our right to water. Persoalan kedua mungkin saya ambil dari apa Datuk Lok, cadangan lah ni sebab sekarang sesi kita adalah cadangan sure ya. Yang isu water filter tadi ada salah seorang panel speaker memberitahu sekarang sangat industri water filter yang paling laris. Bagi saya tak masuk akal. Datuk Lok, kalau ada macam ni pun tengok, kita minum pun bukan minum air pipe. So, bolehkah kita adakan satu kempen? Tapi saya kena check lah di SPAN, di air Selangor, adakah mereka guna water filter ke tidak dulu. Saya terus terang di Suakan pun kita guna water filter. But maksud dia adakah kita sendiri tak yakin air kita ni bersih? So, zaman dulu I think Datuk Marimutu, saya, Datuk Lok and all of us here mungkin minum dari air pipe saja. Ya. Dan air pipe dulu lebih sedap dari sekarang. Tak tahu sebab dia lebih bersih ke lebih kotor, saya tak tahulah, tapi but so now when I go back, saya nak minum dari air pipe, tapi anak saudara saya pula yang marah saya, kenapa you minum dari air pipe? So something has changed. So like maybe labeling. I think this is part of us changing budaya, keyakinan kita terhadap air bersih sendiri. So I think one is consumers sebagai kita, satu lagi perundangan. So dua sure lah saya cadangkan, Datuk Seri.
Thank you, Commissioner Gerald. And from the screen there's a question from Zoom from Umi of BKSA Melaka. The question is, how do we control pollution that come from upstream river that are located in other states? Okay, I think it involves a river that runs through not just one state, it involves, one state to another, right? So, yeah, any volunteers to answer the question? I think this question also got some legal implication, I think. Yeah, whose duty or whose right? Because it involves two states. Is Professor here? Yeah, would you like to answer this? Yeah, from the legal aspect.
Thank you, Datuk. And thank you, Engineer Umi from BKSA Melaka. I suppose I've mentioned just now in the forum that we didn't look the water issue from the river basin perspective. So Melaka, for instance, if we look at Sungai Muar, it is actually shared between Melaka, Johor, Negeri Sembilan, and also Pahang. 4 states are there that all this origin come from these 4 states, and the one at the upper basin, okay, usually have the benefit of doing whatever they want up there, and sometimes the one in the downstream are suffering if the pollution comes from the upper basin. Hence, there is a need for the development process, look into the river basin aspect. As I said just now, even Sungai Langat, it consists of 4 states, part of Kuala Lumpur, the bigger chunk from Selangor, and then we have Putrajaya and Nilai. even the pollution from the sanitary plant in Nilai, okay, Labu, okay, can also affect the water pollution and the water supply for those in the Putrajaya and also the downstream part of Langat. So how to control the pollution? There must be a cooperation between all states involved. There must be a river basin authority who actually will, decide when these matters pop up. Yeah? Just like, if it's not pollution, then it's the issue of conservation, like what we see in Kedah and Penang conflict now. Okay, who should do what? Who should pay what? Okay, but if we do have a river basin authority mandated to, solve the conflict between the stakeholders in the basin, then I suppose this conflict can be better managed rather than, spin and spin as a, another political issues. Okay, so I think we need to, look at this part. The Plan Malaysia, they do this national physical plan, and then come to the state, there is a structure plan. But then when we come to local authorities, they just, give permission for all this, planning, development plan that comes to them. But we have to look at this in a bigger picture, and I suggest that JPS, for instance, they prepare this IRBM plan. So this must be incorporated in those development decision-making process.
Okay. Thank you, the three chairman. I would like to make a few comments, not in direct answer to the last question about a river flowing interstate, but I'm taking an example of a problem within the state itself, within the state of Selangor, for example, and to actually consider the problem faced because of the lack of cooperation and enforcement interagency. We all know that rivers come under JPS, but to give you an example, a very personal example, if I may share this with you, is this. I have a small hobby farm in Rawang, and there's a lovely stream that runs through the land. When it's not raining, there's beautiful clean water with fish in the it's a fairly big stream. I won't call it a river, it's a fairly big stream. And that's my indicator of clean water, because there's fish in it. But come the moment there's a shower upstream, within minutes, the stream, the water that flows through is thick teh tarik. So what's the problem? It's not a question of people dumping. It's not a matter of toxins. This is a case of erosion from the riverbanks and from the sides into the stream. But if it is all virgin jungle, I don't think we will have this problem. It's because of development upstream. And then the question is, what are the agencies doing? Because before you can have any land clearing, you must have permission from the land office, from DOE, from district council even, and so on. So, and this goes on day after day. So this problem is propagated, becomes worse, simply because you get a lot of siltation. The water is teh tarik simply because of water runoff, yeah, over cut land. And then this silt goes into the river goes down into a stream, it goes into the main rivers, and before you know it, you have siltation at the treatment plant. And then, they'll say, it's too badly silted, we have to close down because you can't treat the water and so on. Look at the example of the water treatment plant in Ringlet in Cameron Highlands. Do you know the amount of siltation that is going on there is really incredible. You will have big tractors and cranes just trying to excavate the riverbed so that you can have a stream of water going to the plant. So this is all multi sectorial issues, multi-agency issues. And the question really is that who is stepping up to say we are in charge of this, or how do we get cooperation between agencies? The land office and the once they give the order to develop, there's no supervision, there's no follow-up. JPS, you hardly hear from them. And then it becomes a problem for SPAN and the waterworks. So it's an ongoing problem. Sorry, I don't know what the answer really is. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Datuk Ma. I have a quick look at my watch. I think we have overrun by 7 minutes. So I propose to call it a close to this open discussion forum session. To close. So to thank our commissioners and everyone from the floor and also via Zoom who contributes to this discussion. We had a fruitful discussion and indeed some thought-provoking discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dato'. I understand that still more questions and comments coming online, and I'm sure participants here as well will have more comments as well, but we all have to acknowledge that this is not an issue that we can talk and, conclude in a half-day session. So I hope all of us can bring these conversations offline and continued in realizing the right to clean water in Malaysia. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for the active participation throughout the session, be it physically here in Concord Hotel or those who are joining us via Zoom and YouTube live stream. Thank you, and we hope to see you in another SOACAM event. Lunch will be served at the cafe. Thank you.
Hello to our media friends. You can unmute yourself and you can ask your questions now, Mr. Jason and Ms. Shaira. Hi, Mr. Jason and Ms. Chaira. Do you have any questions to ask to our commissioners? If you do, you can start asking your questions now.